If you go back a couple of episodes, you'll notice that I talked about what we call social contracts. And I don't necessarily want to talk about social contracts anymore, but what I do want to talk about is the contracts in ourselves and how that affects us and how it affects our bodies. So social contracts are, just as a recap, a very, very quick recap, that is where we have beliefs and we agree as individuals that we're going to behave a certain way, or we're going to behave in not a certain way. So there will be a certain reaction at a certain time to certain things. One of the best ways to describe this is, here in America, I have noticed on TikTok anyways, I'll put it this way, but on TikTok, I've noticed when you see cultural differences between like America and the UK, right? So one of the things, and I find this so fascinating, but one of the things, we have social contracts here in America where we behave a certain way and we say things a certain way. And then as you go to other countries like Britain, even though we both speak English, like it's very much very, very similar in the language, right? We have different ways of handling situations or different social norms. And one of the things that I saw, and I found this so fascinating, is they were talking about, I believe it was Americans and Poland, maybe Finland, somewhere. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but they said when you go to order a coffee, you 100% just say coffee. Like you walk up to the person and you just say coffee, right? But here in America, we say, hi, how are you? Can I please get a black coffee, or you place your order? And there, if you were to say, hi, how are you? They take that as a genuine question. So now, they will just unload their life on you because they're like, that's a genuine question. And when you look at the different society norms, they don't put hi, how are you in front of as like a pleasantry. Now, I don't know much about other countries, their social norms, but at the same time, I found that really fascinating. And that is a really good example of social contracts. So here in America, we have a social contract where it's very rude not to say, hi, how are you? How's your day? Whatever, and then order. It would be rude to walk up and just say black coffee. That's considered rude. They would look at you and go, okay. I mean, they would get it for you, obviously, but that would be considered rude. So in our society, and not just America, but in society in general, we have these social contracts that we all agree collectively that we're going to behave a certain way. And if you go back a couple of episodes, I talk all about this and how it affects us. But this is actually what I want to talk about in this episode. And that is the contracts within yourself and how they affect you. Now, the contracts within ourselves are we behave or we react based on other people's opinions. And it's not so much like we don't behave because that's the way we want to behave. We behave because in the past we have gotten certain feedback, and that feedback now dictates how we're going to respond. So as an example, when you're a young child, kids just blurt stuff out all the time, right? Like you could say something totally inappropriate as a kid, and what usually happened, your parent was like, no, don't say that. So now you were not intentionally shamed, but there was very much like that's not okay. We don't talk like that. That's rude to say. And so it reminded you in your head, oh, like that's where we don't say things like that, right? And some things, obviously good. Some things, we're not rude to people. We've created these social norms. At the same time, some of those are like, don't eat that way because people are watching you and you look like XYZ. Don't do this because you're going to gain weight. Don't do this because that makes you look weird. don't say it this way because that makes you, behave this way. And here's the difference. The difference is when we have social contracts with other people, it's how we portray in the world, but these contracts also affect ourselves and our inward selves. And so much so, another really, really good example is imagine if you, so imagine like you're a person who's starting to drive and you're driving, right? You get in the car, you go from point A to point B. Now imagine that you've had a car accident. Now, some of you have had the car accident, and so this is not a new concept because this is something you truly lived in or lived through. At the same time, physically in you, this has nothing to do with other people. This has nothing to do with what anybody else has said. But physically in you, when you get in the car now, you have a contract in yourself that the car is not safe, that you can't trust other drivers, that now you are forced, because of what happened to you, you are forced to look at life in a completely new way. Where before it was safe to go from point A to point B, now you don't know if it's safe. And you will have a physical reaction. Your body has a physical reaction because now you are forced into a contract within yourself, not knowing if you can trust the outcome. So that's where it's different. If it's a social contract, that's with other people, right? Like that's with other people of doing things because there's that expectation of other people. But we have sometimes contracts within ourselves that we created. And yes, sometimes it has to do with other people, but we created the contract and it's within ourselves. One of the things, another example is, you can create contracts of health. Okay. You can create contracts of weight. You can create a contract of like sickness. Okay. And the idea is that something made you look at the world and go, it is better for me to be sick. It is better for me to be this way because it keeps me safe, because I deserve it, things like that. And it's really fascinating. These contracts that we have with ourselves, how much they can affect us. And I wanted to start by explaining the contracts because for myself, when I was really struggling for decades with anxiety and depression and all the stuff that I was diagnosed with, I heard a lot of people say, oh, I healed anxiety and depression with my diet. I healed anxiety and depression with, exercise and eating this way and eating that way. And where I see the benefit and I exercise, I try to eat very healthy at the same time. I am very quickly to say that was not really my problem. I tried all the diets. I tried all the exercise programs, all the things, all the pills, all the vitamins and the minerals and the herbs and the oils. And that really wasn't my problem. And so I really wanted to talk to you guys today about looking inward and seeing the contracts that you have within yourself, because that was my problem. That when I started diving in and noticing the way I was thinking, the way I was responding, the beliefs, the contracts that I had in my head of how it should be, and this is now who I am. Because who knows why? Because that's just the contract I came up with. When I started really dissecting those and I really started looking at them, that is what changed. That is what changed my entire life. That is what changed the anxiety, the depression, the ADHD, migraines, all the different things. That's when it started to change, because I noticed that the contracts that I had within myself were what were causing the stress. That's what was causing the anxiety. That's what was causing the depression. So one of the things that started it, and I do believe that it's a big part of it, is being worried about other people's opinions. And when you start, and I know it's really hard to get away from this. I'm fully aware it's very hard to get away from this concept. But if you grew up and lived in a household or a environment that was very chaotic, that was very intense, maybe even downright toxic or abusive, then you're going to come away with beliefs and contracts that are not healthy. You're going to come away with beliefs and contracts with not just with other people. That's definitely a thing, but within yourself, of how you view yourself and how you should behave. I think one of the easiest ones is if you were raised in an abusive household and that's all you know, then in your mind, that makes sense. Well, of course they're hitting me. Well, of course, because it's very familiar to you, because that's exactly what should be happening. Because from birth, if you don't know anything different, then you don't know anything different. Because that's what's comfortable, because that's what's familiar. And I don't say it's comfortable like, oh, you're so grateful for the abuse. I'm saying it's familiar. If somebody who's nice, if you've been told your entire life you're trash and you're not worth anything, it's hurtful. It's very hurtful, but you've come to a point where you're like, yeah, okay, I can handle that. When somebody's like, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, and hasn't been the norm, you're looking at them going, what is this? What is happening right now? Who are you? Like, you're lying to me. What do you want? Right? Because it's so unfamiliar. And so even though it's something good for us, the social contract in our head, the social contract that we have towards other people on how they should treat us, is very much like, this is weird. This is not okay. And it's uncomfortable and it's weird. And you're just like, I don't know how to handle this. And in the back, I mean, really we do crave, good relationships and healthy habits and being the person, being in a happy and peaceful and joyful life. We crave that, but you don't just magically, if you grew up in chaos and toxicity and abuse, you don't just magically jump to this peace and joy and love. It's work, because it's so unfamiliar, because the habits and the contracts that you have of chaos and toxicity, that's what you know. And so to just jump to like, I'm going to be in a peaceful, happy relationship, it's not a thing, because you don't know what that looks like. We don't know what it looks like. We want it and we would love to have it, but we don't know what it looks like. And so when it comes to being indifferent to other people's opinions, that takes work, because being indifferent means you have to heal yourself. Not caring what the other person thinks about you means that you are going to have to genuinely work on yourself. Forget the other people. You have to get to a point where somebody can look at you and be like, oh, you're this and you're that. And you're like, okay, whatever. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. And I'm going to get to how I did that. I mean, I don't know that it's ever perfect, to be honest with you. I don't know that you ever get to a point where you're just like floating through life with zero cares. I think there's always the next level, which is great, because that's like, I think it's great, because otherwise it's boring. It's boring to hit a level of perfection. You've now hit perfection. Now what? So I'm happy that there's another level. At the same time, I'm so much better that now the majority of people really can't hurt my feelings. There's a very, very small amount of people that, I can be like, oh, that hurt. The majority of people, if they say something unkind or questioning or anything, I'm like, you know what? That's your journey. That's what you're on. Whatever. So it starts off when we're young. Typically, it starts off when we're young and we have these belief systems that have been ingrained in us. Now, the same has to do with our internal contracts that we have just with ourselves. So typically they're from other people, but it's not so much that it's not that you have a social agreement with another person. It's more like you yourself have come to an agreement that it's better for you. It keeps you safe. It keeps you protected. If you do a certain thing and it affects only you, if that makes sense. It affects only you. And one of the things is maybe you were the person that was always invisible. And even though you don't like being the person that was always invisible, it kept you safe being the person that was always invisible. And now as you're an adult, you're like, nobody cares about me. Nobody cares what I'm doing. Nobody cares how my life is going. I'm always invisible. Definitely plausible. At the same time, I would bet that if you go back into your life, the reason you're the person that's invisible is because it kept you safe. It kept you protected. It was better to be invisible than the alternative, whatever happened. And that's the contract that you created in yourself, because it was better to have that than the alternative. Another contract that sometimes we put on ourselves is health contracts. And those health contracts are, it's better, well, I'll give you a full example here. Like some people, they constantly are sick. And the reason they're constantly sick is because being sick gets them something. Like some people truly don't have anybody in their life that cares about them. But if they get sick, they go to the hospital and now people care about them. And I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying they're not faking it. This is not a faking kind of thing. This is truly in your brain. If you go look up Joe Dispenza, if you go look up Greg Braden, there's a lot of people who are really starting to put these together. And this is one of the things, there's a lot of people putting it together, but there's not a lot of people talking about it, which I find really fascinating. And that is, we live in a society where a lot of people want to go to a pill. They want to go to a diet. They want to go to an exercise program. They want to go to something quick and outwardly giving their power over to an outward process to fix their inward problems. That is the society that we live in. I need a pill. I need a person. I need a coach. I need a doctor. I need a chiropractor. I need plant medicine. I need marijuana. I need peyote. Right? Like all of these things, which are outward things to fix their inward problems. And I see it all over the place. And I am an advocate. If you need help, get help. That is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is I find it interesting that the majority, and I'll speak specifically to myself, 99.99999% of my problems were an internal problem that I created. And for 20 years, I tried to look to an outward solution to a problem that was internal. It was the way I was thinking. It was the contracts within myself. It was the social contracts that I was trying to live up to with other people. And it was unsustainable. And the outward help could only take me so far. And the thing that I'm finding now that's fascinating is the more I stop going to an outward solution and I just now focus on an internal solution, the majority, and not just so much the majority of my problems are going away, but I am finding I'm amazed at what I can fix myself without going to a coach, without taking a pill, without going to the doctor, without using an external substance to try and fix the internal problem. And it's so fascinating to me because even the highest gurus of gurus of gurus are still outward seeking. They're seeking the vitamin, the supplement, the coach, that whatever, right? It's an outward thing. And there's a certain amount that are starting to kind of notice, oh, it's my thinking, or oh, I need to change this in my brain. But the majority are going outward. They're trying to find an outward solution to the internal problem. And I find that really fascinating. And what I want to talk about today, or what I'm talking about today, is when you can start looking inward, and I mean for everything. It can be hard, and it can be a struggle, and it can be uncomfortable, but it's amazing what you'll find out that you can fix and what you have total control over. Now, when you can start, okay, well, so let's start with the first thing. How do you identify these things? Well, it's very similar to social contracts. It's noticing how you're feeling. It's noticing what you're feeling. So it's questioning everything. So for me, I have gotten to the point where I question everything. When somebody says, or not even other people, but just myself, when I come across something, like I had bad eyesight at one point, and I started learning this concept, and I had already fixed a few things in my life. I had already fixed the depression. I'd already really fixed and maybe fixing is not a great word. It was more like I was no longer getting those symptoms at all. And I was no longer having the symptoms of anxiety. And I wasn't really doing anything different. I wasn't changing my diet. I wasn't really exercising anymore. I mean, I was trying different vitamins and stuff, but they hadn't really helped me before, and it wasn't anything new. I was taking them, but it wasn't anything new. And when I started changing over, now I started questioning, like, well, if I don't have anxiety and depression or the symptoms anymore, can I do the same thing with my eyesight? Can I do the same thing with migraines? Can I do the same thing with, gray hair? Can I do the same thing with wrinkles? Can I do the same thing with stretch marks? Can I do the same thing with my gut health? Can I do the same thing with, feeling stressed out? Like, where does this end? That was really the question. Where does it end? Like, what can't I do? And so now I'm in a habit now where I question everything. And if something comes up, I say, well, how much of this can I fix? How much without any help? Right? Like, okay, it's stressful to get on an airplane. Well, I look at other people. They're not stressed to get on an airplane. And then I look over here, and this guy needs, to be completely wasted to get on an airplane. So I'm somewhere in between there. So I haven't gotten to the point where I am absolutely just drunk to fly. But how do I get over here? Can I make myself be this person that's totally calm and sleeping on the plane? Like sleeping during takeoff? Can I be that person? And it was now just a massive question as to how much of this could I change? How much of this could I fix? What how much of this is just natural aging or natural, like this is just the way our bodies happen, and how much of this is because I think that's what has to happen. And I've been really, really surprised. I've been genuinely surprised at, I'll go through a such stressful situation and I'm just going through the motions. And then all of a sudden I'll stop and I'll think, does it have to be this stressful? I mean, I hear other people who are stressed during a move. I hear other people who are upset because this isn't turning out the way that they want it to turn out. But does it have to be this way? Or what could it look like? So that's kind of the first step. The first step is to question everything and to notice everything and to say, I get it that this has been the norm, but does it have to be? And then I love energy healing. Like I said, I love energy healing and I love hypnosis. And from those two things, I've been able to retrain my brain. Now, I have a 5-step method that I use that easily I just start removing stuff. I've done it on clients. I've taught people even how to do it, but it's basically just getting the feeling of washing away whatever you're feeling. And if you go back to, I believe it's episode 9, I'll have to look that up, but I believe it's episode 9. If you go back to it, it is a real basic, really, really basic on how I do my 5-step healing method. Like I said, super basic, but you can go back and listen to it. And the other thing is hypnosis. And the hypnosis is taking the car accident theory, right? Like if you were in a car accident and now you're stressed because of that, or before you weren't stressed, it's going back and it's noticing, okay, this was stressing me out, or this was a thing, right? And it's stressing me out. And then you go in and under hypnosis, you're able to sit there and say, okay, you realize that yes, this happened, this situation exactly pinpoint, right? The situation that it happened. Now you can go in and tweak it and say, okay, I know that it's a possibility that you could be in another car accident at the same time. Here's why that's unlikely. Here's why you're safe. Here's why it's going to be okay. And you just retrain your brain to go. It's not going back because you can't go back, but it's retraining your brain to say, it's okay. Where your brain at that time is kind of stuck in this. It's not going to be okay. It's going to forever be this way. I have to be on the alert all the time. And you go in and you say, I don't have to be on alert all the time. So those are the two methods that I really like to use, especially for to switch those contracts, because the energy healing allows you to, once you learn how to do it, you can forever just start to remove stuff and to work through stuff. And if you really are having a hard time, you can use hypnotherapy, you can use hypnosis, and either find somebody to do it. I have a few recordings on here about self-love, that kind of thing, and so you can even try it. All right, now this kind of brings me to those two things. Why they work is because they identify the root cause. They go back and both of them, it retrains your brain to, number one, find the root cause, to say, okay, what are we dealing with here? Why do I feel like this is going to be a problem? Why can I not get past this? Why am I stressing about this individual thing? Why do I need to worry about this other person's opinion? Why am I stressed about this other person and what they're thinking? And then it usually comes back to, because if you're on alert all the time, it keeps you safe. Or you're a horrible person and they think you're a bad person, so you must be a bad person. It's just these weird little beliefs that we have. And when you can switch those off, when you can switch, and not just switch them off like switch them off like that, but during energy healing or hypnosis or meditation, you can switch these off. And it's amazing that you now can figure out, when you can figure out how to do it, now you can start going through and finding all these little things and the root causes. And now you're just like switching stuff off all the time. I do it all the time. And it's awesome. The next thing I would have to say is being self-aware and being mindful is absolutely important here. Really start diving in, like noticing what things within yourself you like and what things you don't like. So for instance, maybe noticing a behavior, or maybe a behavior of like that you do or that other people do, and how you respond to that behavior or how you interact with people. Those kind of things, just looking at the situation. I know I've talked about this in so many podcasts, but looking at the situation and just looking at it and being honest with it and going, oh, don't stop reacting emotionally. Just look at it as like, oh, this is really fascinating. Like, I've been in some situations where I sat there and I was like, oh, nobody genuinely cares that I'm here. And not in a, oh my gosh, I'm so sad. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. It was very eye-opening to sit there and realize I am spending time with people who genuinely don't care if I'm here. And I'm giving my time and I'm giving my resources and I'm giving my energy. And they don't care that I'm here. It's not important to them that I'm here. And not that I don't need to be important to everybody, but at the same time, like, I was taking time away from my life and my family and what I wanted to do because I thought they cared, because I thought they wanted me there. And when I really looked around, I noticed I was feeling kind of like something's not right. I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling upset, and nobody's listening to me. And then I stopped. I just stopped and I looked around, and everybody was having a conversation and nobody asked me any questions. And I'd very clearly started like this like kind of a story or something that I thought was interesting or added to the conversation. Nobody asked me a question about it. Nobody asked me any follow-up. No, I just sat there and I thought, this is fascinating. And then I started to think back while everybody else was having their conversations. I thought, how often does this happen? That I'm trying to be a part of this group. And I don't think they were being malicious. It wasn't that they were being malicious. It was just, it was so fascinating. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was so fascinating to have that aha that, oh, they don't care that I'm here. Nobody hates me. They don't dislike me, but they don't care that I'm here. And for the rest of the evening, nobody asked me questions. Nobody asked me, oh, how are you doing? Or, oh, how's things going? They were all talking with each other. And I thought, okay. And it's super easy that I could get emotional. I could get sad and I could be like, oh my gosh. But I sat there and I thought, what a gift that I'm not going to waste any more of my time and any more of my energy. And you know what? It's okay, because I had other places that I could get that need from. And I thought, this is a gift that I am getting time back. And I really hope that they, are having a great, like they're doing well and they're happy and they are good with life. And I just really had this sense of like, I didn't go emotional. I didn't go mad. I just looked at the situation for exactly what it was. I don't think anybody was trying to be malicious. I just think we didn't click. And my presence was not beneficial to them, but at the same time, their presence wasn't that beneficial to me. Like it was fine. It was a mutual, oh, okay, we're not vibing here. And I hope that makes sense, because it was very much a very positive thing where I think it's easy to look at those situations and realize nobody wants me here. Nobody cares. It's super easy to be like, well, why don't you like me? What did I do wrong? And I really want to challenge you to not go like you did something wrong, but to look at it as to say, this is okay. This is all right. And this is where, now, this is truly where that becoming indifferent to people, right? Because it's so easy to automatically become wounded in the victim. And that's where the work is going to come from. The work of energy healing or meditation or hypnosis. This is where that work comes in, because the next step, I have had this happen. The next step is like, if you leave a place and you truly are upset and that's where you at, that's okay. Like you can't, so let's say hypothetically, you cannot just leave the situation and be like, I wish you all the best. Like you're mad. You're like, why don't you like me? What did I do? I've done all this for you guys. And why don't you care about me? Right? If that's the case, then I challenge you to try to be the person that leaves but appearing to say, I wish you all the best. Because then when you get home, you can start unpacking, why don't they like me? But you're unpacking that. Don't put it on other people, because putting it on other people, now you're bringing those social contracts that they need to behave a certain way and they didn't behave the right way, rather than looking at it going, why do I expect people that I want them to respond this way? I get that it could hurt your feelings. I understand that it could hurt your feelings that people don't want you around, especially if you like that person. At the same time, do you really want to be around people that don't like you? Do you really want to be around people that don't value you? Do you really want to be around a person who could just have you there or not have you there and it doesn't really matter? No. That's such a waste of your talents and your gifts and who you are as a person. You want to be with people that want you there. And even, number one, either you do have people that are that way and you need to spend more time with them. Get away from the people who don't matter. Or let's just say hypothetically, you're like, I really can't think of anybody. Great. Now you have a goal. Now you know what you're headed towards. Now you know what you're looking for. You now know what you don't want. And that's super helpful sometimes to look for what you do want. And that right there is, sometimes that's all you need to know what you don't want, to find out what you do want. All right. The next thing is setting boundaries. And this is where the social contracts, it gets messy. At the same time, the internal contracts with yourself, it becomes slightly difficult sometimes, because you're not fighting a random person, you're fighting your own head. You're fighting your head between what you feel, the emotion, and logic. Okay? And that is sometimes hard, because especially if you're, let's just say, a panic attack. When you're having a panic attack, you can logically tell yourself, this isn't real. You could tell yourself that all day. Inside the core of your being, it is so real. There's nothing fake about it. It is absolutely real. And that is hard to just be like, it's nothing, it's fine. If you can train your brain, not if, you can train your brain, which is very possible, because I did it for a while I was healing myself, while I was removing stuff, while I was working through stuff. It got to a point where I was still getting panic attacks. Like I was still having anxiety. I was still feeling worried. But I would feel them internally, and I would just portray absolute calm and normalcy on the outside. Now, I was not perfect at this. Sometimes it would absolutely seep through and I'd be like, like the anxiety would just ooze out of whatever situation was happening. At the same time, there were a lot of times where I would start to get really stressed and really panicked. And I was like, this is going to ruin the night. This is going to ruin the evening. And I was able to, because I had done enough work, because I had removed enough stuff, because I had done enough hypnosis, because I had really deep dived into these contracts, I was able to look at myself and I would say, okay, what would it look like if I wasn't having this panic attack? What would it look like? How would I behave? What would I say? How would I behave? What would I do? Where would I sit? Where would I not sit? What would my face look like? What would my body present at? Like what would happen? And I remember one specific time I was going like to the store or something, and just randomly, who knows why, I still to this day, I don't know why, I'll get very, very nervous. And it's probably over money or something. And I immediately told myself, okay, this is going to ruin the experience. How would it look if I went to the store, got what I wanted, and came home? And the whole time, I believe I had one of my kids with me, and I believe the whole time I just would not allow myself to act like I was having a panic attack. I would not allow myself. I was feeling it. I was stressing about it. But in my head, I was thinking the whole time, this is not real. So outwardly, I sat there and I thought, okay, what would this look like? And what it would look like is on the way to the store, I would ask my kid questions and I would say, hey, what did you do in school today? Or how did this go? Or did you have fun playing with so-and-so? And I let them talk. And all the while, I am just like panicked. Go to the store, we're paying for something, or we're getting stuff and then I pay for it on the way home. Then on the way home, it was like, I think one of the kids was like, can we go to the library? And at that point, I'd had it and I had done a good job. I had pretended I wasn't having the anxiety attack anymore. And this takes time. I'm not in any way saying that you should just get to this. No, it takes time. But my point is it's possible. It's possible to do it. And I know it's possible because I did it. And when you do it enough times, you can just fake it. And it's not to fake it so that nobody ever knows. It's to fake it so your life continues. But then when I got home, I was able to deep dive and I was able to go, what was that? What was I worried about? Oh, I was worried about money. I was worried about spending this. I was worried about if we had whatever. That's what I was worried about. And then I did all the stuff that I normally, I got all the tools out and I got all the things out that I know to remove it. And so it allows you, it's this boundary within yourself to say, I have the tools and I'm going to use them. And the boundary is, I know it's still there, but you don't get to control my life anymore. You don't get to dictate now. Do I have panic attacks? Do I have anxiety? Am I dealing with this? Yes, but you're not going to dictate anymore. My life is going to continue. And it's an amazing place when you can get there. And so that, I hope that inspires you that it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible that, like, I'm not special. I'm not special in the fact that, like, we're all special in that we have special skill sets, but I'm not special in that, oh, I have this thing that nobody else can do. Everybody can do it. Everybody can do it. I teach people how to do it. If you learn enough, like, you don't just have to have somebody else to do it for you. Like, you can do it. It's just putting the work into it. That's really it. And that kind of brings me to my last point. My last point is that as long as you keep moving forward, you're going to reach your goal. It doesn't matter how fast or how slow you're going towards your goal, as long as you're heading towards your goal. As long as you're heading in the right direction, you're going to make it. As long as you're heading there and you are taking a step, you're going to make it. Other people may make it in a year. Some other people make it in 5 years. Some people make it in 30 years. You're going to make it. That's a fact. You're going to make the goal as long as you don't stop and you're heading in the right direction. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You're going to hit it. Logically, scientifically. Like, if you think about it, right? If you have to go 100 yards and you're taking tiny little baby steps. And somebody else is over there making like big strides. You're both going to hit the goal. You're going to hit it slower than the other person. The person's going to hit it a little bit faster. And let's say, well, I kind of like this visual, right? Like, I think some of us, we kind of have tied feet. Like, our shoelaces are tied together. And some people, like, we're not wearing shoes. And, like, some people, like, it's a whole thing. We're all, as long as you're heading towards the goal and you're taking tiny, tiny, tiny little steps, you're still moving towards the goal. And you're eventually going to hit it. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible not to hit it. If you go to the gym every day, 5 times a week, whatever, 3 times a week, and you do the bare minimum, you sit there and you walk on the treadmill and you like, oh, I'm doing it. You're gonna be physically better than somebody who doesn't. You're going to, get stronger, lose weight, have a healthier body. You can't help it because you're moving forward. You don't have a choice. If you're moving forward in the direction you want to go, it doesn't matter how fast you're going. It doesn't matter how slow you're going to hit the target. So remember that. I want you guys to remember that it's not important how fast you go. And it's so frustrating when you see other people who are doing it. I get it. It's so frustrating. But start looking at yourself. Start looking inward. Start really trying to figure out what's going on in there. And stop looking for external things to fix whatever's going on in here. It's so our habit and our culture in life to be like, what's going on over here? Will this help me? Will this help me? Will this help me? Will that help me? What are you doing? Well, what are you doing? No, look inward. Figure it out. Dig it out. It's uncomfortable. But then after a while, it's kind of fun. You're like, oh, that's a new one. Now when I find stuff that I have warped thinking, I'm like, oh my, well, I'm behaving. I'm doing what? I'm like, well, we got to get that out. That's not helpful. And I'm like genuinely fascinated now. I'm like, whoa, I did not realize I thought like that. I did not realize I was causing chaos in this area of my life. And I'm genuinely like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal because I know how to remove it. I've just learned the skills. I've just learned the skill sets to remove it. That's it. That's all I've done. I'm not special. I'm not better. All right. I love you guys. Please, please, please look inward. Figure it out. Do what you need to do. And if this podcast has helped you guys at all, please share it. Please share it with a friend. Share it with a partner or a family member of some kind. All right. Love you guys.